After a distinguished career in the armed forces, he was ready to discover what the next chapter of his life had in store. He always loved kids and wanted to do something that would make a difference in his community. He fell in love with teaching, and he also fell in love with a beautiful coworker. He was a hopeless romantic. He felt like he found the one. They were going to live a life happily ever after. But their fairy tale ending gets cut short by an unexpected tragedy. She just found her husband unresponsive. She had suspected there was some foul play.
We went like this, and we went.
When police launch their investigation, they'll discover a sophisticated killer who will do anything to evade justice. She said she got a phone call from an anonymous number. It was a male voice.
All I heard was, ask them about Tennessee.
She believed that he may have been poisoned. This crime was planned out and premeditated. But the true extent of their plan was still unfolding. They tried to recruit somebody to kill the key witness. And listen, something happened here, Fred. The judge said, I have never witnessed such a stone-cold person. It's disgusting. September 9, 2000, Montebello, California. It's a quiet evening in this charming community, located just a few miles from the heart of downtown LA. Montebello is a completely different world when it comes to the greater Los Angeles area. It's kind of more like a suburb area. Many families come to enjoy some of the peace outside of being in the city. But at 3 a.m., the peaceful night is interrupted when local resident Angelina Rodriguez makes a desperate call to 911.
I just found my husband on the floor and he's not breathing. I need help right now.
To 911 operators, it's clear time is of the essence. Police were immediately dispatched to the home. When first responders arrive, it's just as Angelina claimed. Her husband Frank is completely unresponsive. They found him on the side of his bed, as if he had collapsed while trying to get up.
Do you know how he ended up on the floor?
I don't know, I just found him like that.
They do everything in their power to try and provide first aid to try and resuscitate him, but Frank Rodriguez is pronounced dead on the scene.
Time of death, 3:19.
Oh, God.
I'm so sorry, man.
Frank.
Navy veteran Francisco Frank Rodriguez balanced his strong sense of responsibility with a gentle spirit. He was kind, he would never hurt anybody, and overall, just the person that everybody wanted to be around. Frank was the man. Frank was also a devout Christian. His religion and living out his faith was very important to him. He didn't smoke, drink, do drugs. In 1996, after a successful 10-year career in the armed forces, Frank decided it was time to pursue his true calling. He always loved kids and wanted to do something that would make a difference in his community. And he felt that working with children, he could make a large impact in young people's lives. So when Frank secured a job at a private school in California's Central Coast, he was overjoyed. He landed a teaching job in San Luis Obispo, teaching at Angel Gate Academy. Angel Gate is through the National Guard. It's a program for troubled youths that needs some rehabilitating. So when they came there, Frank would teach them basically life skills, how to get out of trouble, make a life for yourself, and teach them how to be a person instead of what they were doing on the streets. And for the first time in his life, he found like he really truly found his purpose. But purpose wasn't all Frank found at his new job. He also found love.
We still on for dinner tonight?
Absolutely.
He started dating a fellow school employee named Angelina Morales. She worked somewhere in the kitchen area, serving food. He thought she was beautiful. Angelina was also a devout Christian, just like Frank. He saw a woman who was just as much passionate and in love with God as he was, and Frank fell hard.
Well, I'm gonna let you get back to it, and I'll see you later.
Sounds good. I'll come get you as soon as I'm done with these papers.
They seemed to really be in love. Frank was always looking for his love of his life, and they seemed happy. After a whirlwind romance, the happy couple tied the knot in April of 2000, just 3 months after they met. Frank and Angelina may have moved fast, but they were so in love they couldn't bear to wait any longer. Shortly after they got married, Frank also received a new position in Los Angeles. The couple picked up and moved 200 miles south to the LA suburb of Montebello. The two of them are headed to the suburbs to build this life together. But just 6 months after saying I do, it appears Frank's heart has stopped beating. Angelina found him unresponsive on the floor of their bedroom.
Time of death, 319.
So sorry.
At first, no one is sure how Frank died. There was no obvious lacerations. There was no obvious abrasions. Was it a medical emergency that claimed his life? Maybe a heart attack, a brain aneurysm? But Angelina insists it was something else.
Somebody did this to him. This was no accident.
Angelina Rodriguez had suspected there was some foul play possibly in her husband's death. She is pretty sure that somebody had poisoned my brother. In the fall of 2000, 41-year-old Navy veteran Frank Rodriguez was living a comfortable suburban life with his new bride, Angelina Rodriguez. It seemed like things were very promising and they were going to live a life happily ever after. But now, Frank has been found dead in the newlyweds' Montebello, California home. He didn't have any visible injuries or signs of foul play. Was it a medical emergency that claimed his life? Maybe a heart attack, a brain aneurysm? According to Angelina, there's a more nefarious possibility. She is pretty sure that somebody had poisoned my brother.
This was no accident. I can feel it.
At this point, emotions are high, so maybe Angelina is just overreacting, but investigators want to see if there's any validity to her theory. While Frank's body is transported to the coroner's office for an autopsy, Angelina accompanies officers back to the station for a sit-down with detectives.
Hi, Angelina. Nice to meet you. Are you here? Let's rush.
Investigators cut right to the chase.
You believe there's a possibility that your husband was poisoned? Yes, sir.
Angelina informed the police that Frank was extremely healthy, but over the last several days he became gravely ill, was throwing up every half hour, extremely sick, vomiting, and diarrhea.
Do you want to go to the doctor? He goes, no, I probably just got talk. Typical stubborn man.
But 2 days before his death, Frank's symptoms seemed to be getting worse, and Angelina knew she had to act fast.
And he was just paler than anything. And I said, doctor, I'll take him to the doctor.
Doctors ran all the standard tests, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. They said Frank probably just had food poisoning or maybe a stomach flu.
Doctor said you can go home as long as you get rest, get food, take your medicine the way you're supposed to.
Angelina says when Frank returned from the hospital, she continued nursing him back to health, and he seemed to be improving.
Well, I'm going to get out of your space so you can get some rest, but if you need anything else, just give me a shout.
Sounds good, darling.
I'm thinking the worst is over. And then I can just, relax, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep on the couch. And then I woke up at about 3, and I said, time for me to go to bed. And that's what I told him.
Frank? Frank!
As for why Angelina now suspects foul play in her husband's death, she says it has everything to do with the timing of when Frank got sick. She says around the same time Frank got sick, he had taken a short contracted position with his previous workplace, Angel Gate Academy. They were going to bus in some kids from LA near where Frank and Angelina now lived, up to San Luis Obispo, where the school is located, and they wanted Frank to help.
They offered him $220 just to escort the bus of kids as a disciplinary teacher to San Luis and to ride it back.
So you just riding along to chaperone, basically?
Yeah.
But Angelina says she urged Frank against taking another job with their former employer.
When we worked at Angegate, we both realized or recognized that there was child abuse.
Angelina explains the culprit was a school instructor named Jack Parker.
I had witnessed a situation where he would look in the latrine, the bathrooms, while the girls were getting dressed. Then he would go into one of the bays, the quarters, and just stand there and watch the girls. You know, I wasn't comfortable with that.
Frank?
Yes, sir.
Angelina says when she shared her concerns with Frank back in April, he was horrified.
Wow, are you sure?
Yes, I know what I saw.
And because Frank loved the children that he worked with and he loved his job, he decided to take it a step further and report this to the Child Protective Services, CPS, and an investigation was launched. According to Angelina, that's when Jack started making threats.
He looked at me and had said, if anybody jeopardizes my job, I will kill them.
Detectives in Montebello, California, are speaking with Angelina Rodriguez about the untimely death of her husband, Frank. Angelina believes Frank's former co-worker, Jack Parker, poisoned Frank as payback for reporting him to CPS.
You mentioned threats. What threats are
He looked at me and had said, if anybody jeopardizes my job, I will kill them. He looked at Frank and he went like this, and he went, right, dead on, eye to eye.
According to Angelina, this incident with Jack Parker was the main reason why they left Angelgate and decided to pursue employment somewhere else. But Angelina says when Angelgate Academy reached out to Frank about the contracted position in late August, he felt it was his duty to help.
I had asked Frank not to fail, but Frank was an idealist. And he thought everything will be okay.
On September 5th, Frank rode a bus up to San Luis Obispo with a group of middle school kids, escorting them to the academy.
When I get back, I said, so how is everybody there? They were great. They walked up to me. They hugged me. They, said they missed me. And they gave me Gatorade and cookies and a snack. There was no animosity.
However, once he felt ill, she became extremely suspicious.
Maybe back here a second. Did he say who offered him the Gatorade?
Angelina says it was none other than Jack Parker. Apparently, the CPS investigation failed to find any proof of abuse, so Jack still had his same position at the academy. She suspected that maybe he had given Frank snacks and drink with maybe some poison in it.
I don't know what else it could be. For him being as healthy as he was to...
Detectives share Angelina's concerns. They do believe it's suspicious that he fell ill right after visiting Angelgate. They're hoping the autopsy report can provide some clarity on whether or not Frank died of natural causes or some sort of poisonous substance like Angelina believed. While they await the autopsy results, detectives investigate their new lead. They want to speak to Jack Parker. They ended up going up north to talk to him along with several other people. And just find out where he was, if he had saw Frank. If he had any words with Frank at all. When investigators sit down with Jack, he readily admits that he had a falling out with Frank a few months ago.
Of course it made me mad. Wouldn't it make you mad? I almost lost my job over that. Those rumors aren't true.
So did you decide to punish the person for putting you in that position?
Punish him? That's crazy.
He agreed that he was upset at this whole entire incident, but even though he was upset, he did not poison Frank. He further mentioned that on September 5th, he did not see Frank at Angel Gate.
I didn't even know he was here.
It was a last-minute request from Angel Gate Academy, so when Frank got up there, no one knew he was coming. It was a surprise. So how would Jack know Frank was coming to have poison on hand? When detectives follow up with Jack's co-workers, they confirm his account.
There is no way Jack would poison someone.
If there is anyone you should be looking at, it's Frank's wife.
Angelina?
While talking to detectives, Frank's former co-workers paint a troubling picture of his marriage to Angelina. They report that although the parties had only been married for a very short period of time, the marriage was on the rocks. As more details were coming to light, there were some red flags being raised. Police soon learned that Frank isn't Angelina's first, second, or third husband. This is the fourth time she has been married, all by the age of 32. I knew something was up the moment that she started work here. How so? She was so desperate to get any guy's attention. People at Angel Gate described her as a chameleon, and prior to her starting relationship with Frank, she had this infatuation for another employee who was kind of a cowboy. Many of her colleagues say that Angelina was dressing like a cowgirl, day to day, trying to pique this man's interest. She even had bumper stickers on her car to kind of stamp her as a down-home cowgirl.
But when that didn't work out, she started talking to Frank.
Here's Frank, a very religious, very spiritual man, read his Bible religiously. So now she starts reading the Bible. She puts Jesus Christ bumper stickers on her car.
Frank ended up falling for her act.
She convinced him to marry her after like 3 months of dating. It all happened really fast.
Around that same time, Angelina started accusing Jack Parker of sexually abusing students at the school.
Do you think there's any validity to her claims?
Absolutely not. But Frank, he believed everything she said, which is why he reported Jack to CPS.
Former co-workers say Angelina really got in Frank's head and made him believe something about Jack that wasn't true.
Wow, are you sure?
Yes, I know what I saw.
Why do you think she'd make something up like that about Jack?
I have no clue. The woman's crazy.
Detectives agree that Angelina's behavior is rather concerning. After traveling back to Montebello, the detectives decide to interview Frank's family to see if they share similar concerns about his marriage to Angelina.
Something definitely wasn't right with her.
They started to notice that there was trouble in Paradise very early on. They were fighting a lot and just weren't happy together.
Frank would call me on the phone a lot. But when they got married, the calls got less and less and less. And I remember one call that I got from him, and he was whispering. And in his whisper voice, he'd say, well, she doesn't want me to call the family anymore.
Then a few days before he died, I got a call from Angelina.
Angelina casually informed her that Frank had fallen ill.
She said he was going to the hospital frequently, and the hospital would send him home with no diagnosis except flu symptoms or ulcers or whatever it was.
We didn't think much of it because she didn't really say how serious it had gotten.
You think, okay, well, if he needs me, he'll call. And then the next call I get is in September.
That's when Angelina informed them that Frank had passed.
I remember I fell to the table and I started bawling. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to say goodbye. We all thought he had a heart attack.
But now, Frank's family suspects foul play.
I think Angelina did this to him.
And as suspicion of Angelina Rodriguez mounts, it seems she's starting to feel the heat. She starts making these really odd phone calls to the investigators.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Did you guys get anything at all from the coroner?
The autopsy results have yet to come back. However, Angelina is really pushing for some results and is calling the detectives day in and day out.
Well, they don't have anything yet. It takes time for this type of stuff.
When the detectives eventually ask Angelina what is the rush, she tells them something very unexpected. She needs Frank's death certificate so she can file an insurance claim. She wanted that money. After speaking with several of Frank Rodriguez's family members and former co-workers, Montebello detectives are starting to believe his wife, Angelina, had something to do with his untimely death. Angelina has been calling detectives repeatedly asking about the results of Frank's autopsy.
Did you guys get anything at all from the coroner?
She needs Frank's death certificate so she can file an insurance claim. She wanted that money.
But she wasn't going to get that money till there was a cause of death on the certificate.
The detectives learned that just 2 months prior, Angelina and Frank took out a $250,000 life insurance policy on Frank's life. This is in addition to 2 other hefty policies that Frank had from his previous employment. And when detectives call the couple's insurance agent up, he reveals a very shocking piece of information. He tells police that Angelina tried to file a claim on Frank's insurance policy less than 5 hours after he died. This is certainly not the behavior of a grieving widow. When the autopsy report finally comes in, it does little to help Angelina's cause. The coroner was not able to determine Frank's cause of death. They didn't find any physical trauma. They didn't find any aneurysm. In addition, all the standard toxicology tests came back negative. Is it possible that Frank wasn't poisoned at all and he really did die from natural causes? While detectives continue their search for answers, Frank's family attends his funeral, where he is laid to rest with full military honors and a 21-gun salute.
At the funeral, Angelina, she did not shed a tear. Her demeanor was just cold. She didn't care that my brother had passed. There was nothing there.
But that's not the only thing that makes Frank's family uncomfortable.
She said something about oleander, and my family's looking at her like, what are you talking about, oleander? Well, that's a poison. Maybe they should test for oleander in his system.
Oleander is not typically included in the standard toxicology report. There's no reason for Angelina to suspect that plant was used to poison Frank, unless she knows more than she's letting on, so the family relayed this unsettling info to police. And in the following days, Angelina gets even more persistent with her calls to detectives. She was very adamant about asking us when we were going to arrest Jack. And she said she got a phone call from an anonymous number. It was a male voice telling her that he had something to tell her.
They said they wanted to tell me what was going on because they had a lot of respect for Frank, but they couldn't tell me who they were, and they said, you need to know a conversation I had.
He told her that he had spoken with Jack, and Jack had told him that he was responsible for killing Frank, and that Jack told him that they're never going to be able to prove it, and they're never going to be able to pin it on me.
They can't pin me. You can't pin me. It started breaking up, and all I heard was, ask them about antifreeze.
Just like oleander, antifreeze wouldn't show up in a usual toxicology report, so investigators immediately order another round of tests to look for the poisons in Frank's body. As detectives await the results, they examine Angelina's phone records, checking to see if she was being truthful about the anonymous calls she received. Angelina tells the police that she received that anonymous call at about 8 a.m. on October 19th. But we looked into her phone records, and she did not receive any phone calls even near the time that she said she received the phone call. And when the results from the new toxicology tests come in, it's just what detectives suspected. He died from a combination of oleander and antifreeze. Frank's cause of death was poisonous. Now more than ever, investigators are confident Angelina Rodriguez killed her husband. She's been the one indirectly leading investigators to these items, and detectives feel like they want to go in for a confession. So they reach out to Jack Parker, the person Angelina originally accused of killing Frank. They asked him if he would call Angelina and question her about why she's pointing the finger at him, and we could be listening to it and recording it on the other end. They're hoping she'll slip and confess to the crime. Jack agrees, and on December 13th, detectives move forward with their plan.
Hello?
Angelina?
Yes?
Why did you tell the police I poisoned Frank with antifreeze?
She was shocked when he called. On December 13th, 2000, detectives in Montebello, California, are trying to catch murder suspect Angelina Rodriguez in a lie. They believe she poisoned her husband and tried to frame his former co-worker, Jack Parker, for the crime. We asked Jack if he would call Angelina and question her about why she's pointing the finger at him, and we could be listening to it and recording it on the other end.
Hello?
Angelina?
Yes?
Why did you tell the police that I poisoned Frank with antifreeze?
She was shocked when he called, but she didn't take the bait.
Who is this?
My main question, Angelina, is how
How did you get my number?
I wanted Angelina. I'm just wondering how in the world this could ruin my life.
You know what? You need to call the investigator. I'm ending this conversation.
Okay, Angelina.
Angelina hung up that phone call and didn't provide Jack with any additional information once she was confronted. Detectives are disappointed they didn't get the confession they need, but when Angelina's best friend, Lisa Wilson, comes forward, the investigation starts looking up again.
I have some information that I think will be useful to you.
Lisa and Angelina, their relationship was quite close. Like many friends, they tell all.
Sometimes we would complain to each other about our marriages, and Angelina didn't hold back when it came to her feelings about Frank.
Lisa tells the investigators that just a few months after their marriage, Angelina was already tired of Frank, and she began cheating on him.
There were various other men, and I asked her, why don't you just, get a divorce? And then she would go on and on about some life insurance policy.
If she divorced Frank, she'd get nothing. But if something happened to Frank, she'd get a hefty payout. Angelina had been talking about poisons and stuff, and Angelina was very interested in antifreeze. If that wasn't unsettling enough, a phone call Lisa had with Angelina a few days later sent shivers down her spine. She asked Angelina what she's doing because she heard a noise, and Angelina told Lisa that she was making Frank a special milkshake because he liked milkshakes when he wasn't feeling well.
Oh, is Frank sick?
Angelina responded, not yet.
What is that supposed to mean?
Don't worry about it. I'll talk to you later.
I think she was poisoning him that very second.
Detectives wholeheartedly agree. There's no doubt in their minds Angelina poisoned Frank to death. So on February 7th, 2001, nearly 5 months after Frank was killed, they head to Angelina's home with an arrest warrant. The detectives decide that they were going to try one more time to elicit a confession out of Angelina.
Good morning. Morning. How's it going today?
They play it cool at first, so she'll think it's just a routine follow-up interview. However, once investigators sit down with Angelina inside the home, they start to reveal why they're really there.
We got a little problem. What?
They told her that it was impossible for Jack to have poisoned Frank.
Unless he was visiting you guys on Friday, he couldn't have done this. The stuff that Frank had in his stomach, he had to ingest within a couple hours of his death. They found it in his stomach the liquid, the antifreeze, and it has to, liquids purge every couple hours.
Angelina, did you give Frank antifreeze?
No, I didn't. I love my husband. I would not do that.
Even when confronted point blank, Angelina denies any involvement in her husband's murder.
Let's think about this a second. You're the only person with him. You're taking care of him. You're feeding and giving him liquids to drink. We have an abundant amount of information that points that you poisoned Frank.
I didn't poison my husband. I mean, I am willing to take a lie detector test. I did not poison my husband.
Angelina does not budge.
I did not kill my husband.
I'm going to tell you, we don't believe you. Okay. You stand up.
Are you arresting me?
Yes, you are under arrest for the murder of Frank.
No! I didn't kill my husband.
Angelina breaks down into tears when she realizes that she is being arrested.
Oh, God, please. I didn't kill my husband. I swear.
But by now, detectives see through her act and don't buy a word she's saying. She's charged with first-degree murder. Investigators believe this crime was planned out and premeditated. With Angelina finally behind bars and her trial date rapidly approaching, investigators think this case is just about over. But soon, detectives realize that Angelina has no intentions of going down quietly.
Yes, the Detective Saiwan.
Angelina was trying to kill one of the witnesses in her case, and that witness ultimately was Lisa. Building a strong circumstantial case against Angelina Rodriguez, Montebello authorities have finally arrested her for the poisoning death of her husband, Frank Rodriguez.
You are under arrest for the murder of Frank.
No! I didn't kill my husband!
With Angelina behind bars, investigators feel confident they are finally about to close this case once and for all. But while awaiting trial in a Los Angeles County jail, Angelina has made one last desperate attempt to secure her freedom. She is trying to have the star witness, her once close friend Lisa, murdered. The detective received a phone call from a jail employee that said that they were contacted by an informant who told them that Angelina was trying to get her to kill Lisa. She agreed to record conversations she was having with Angelina about how and when to kill Lisa.
You think that if they made it look like a suicide, they'd be bright enough to figure a way to do that? They can do it robbery gone bad, or they can make it look like a boyfriend gone mad. If they get cyanide, then, that would do it real quick, you know what I'm saying?
Angelina had scenarios all the way from blowing up the house to maybe even poison her. So with that information, we devised a plan. They essentially decide to fake Lisa's death. Police informed Lisa of the plot by Angelina to take her life, and Lisa agrees to help the police. The detective picked up some fake blood and a fake bullet hole that they could put on Lisa's head, and they basically took Polaroid photographs of Lisa on her bed in her bedroom, which Angelina would recognize. Then an undercover officer posing as the hitman heads to the Los Angeles jail where Angelina is being held.
Listen, something's happened to your friend. Okay?
Oh, what?
Right.
Within a few seconds, she's like, oh my God, I'm going home.
I am so ready to go home. I'm like, you know what? I'm going home.
And then by the end of the visit, typical Angelina, being very promiscuous, was asking the deputy about basically getting together and hooking up after she got out of jail.
I gotta tell you, I feel really embarrassed.
Why?
Because, what a way to start a conversation. What a blind, okay. I guess you call it a blind date, huh?
However, little does Angelina know she won't be going on another date anytime soon. If you learn anything from Angelina's case, it's that a big mouth gets you in big trouble. And when her trial finally begins in October of 2003, prosecutors contend that just as Angelina attempted to take the life of her friend, she took the life of her husband through premeditated murder. Based in large part on the testimony by Lisa Wilson, the prosecution alleged that Angelina was fed up with her marriage to Frank shortly after they got married and was looking for a way out of the relationship. She was essentially bored of him and ready to move on to the next guy, but not without getting his money first. Instead of filing for divorce like she had with previous husbands, Angelina devised a more sinister plot. Because there was a large life insurance policy in place, this gave her the reason to want to kill Frank. Prosecutors allege that in September of 2000, Angelina began poisoning Frank with oleander that she harvested herself. The neighbors behind her had an oleander tree in their backyard that was growing over their fence, which she plucked from. She used it in liquid form to put in Frank's food and drink. But the oleander wasn't working fast enough. The oleander made Frank ill enough to put him in the ER, but it did not kill him, and his demise did not come fast enough for Angelina.
Whatever the doctor gave me is working. I'm starting to feel a lot better.
Well, isn't that wonderful?
She stepped it up to a more potent poison and gave him antifreeze.
I made you a special treat.
According to the coroner's report, Angelina administered the final dose of antifreeze just hours before Frank's passing.
We were totally shocked that she would go to such lengths as antifreeze and oleander because it's such a slow death.
Had she not raised so much concern about it and let things take its course, there's a possibility that it might not have been detected. She potentially could have gotten away with this murder. But she wanted money. She was very greedy and helped us solve the murder against Frank. At the end of their deliberations, the jury announces their verdict. The jury finds Angelina guilty of first-degree murder for financial gain. But the story still isn't over yet. At Angelina's sentencing hearing, prosecutors reveal a shocking new piece of information. They uncovered evidence to suggest that Angelina murdered her 13-month-old daughter back in 1993. Her daughter had died as a result of a pacifier nipple being lodged in her throat. At the time, there was a recall on that brand of pacifiers, so Angelina sued the manufacturer. She walked away with over $700,000 and an additional life insurance policy of $50,000 that she took out on the baby. But now prosecutors have reason to believe it was Angelina's plan all along. We had gotten pictures of the pacifier from the coroner's office. The recall said it could come unglued from the backing plate. But if you looked at these pictures, you could tell that there were jagged tears, but it was still glued. This pacifier didn't fail. It was basically, nipple was ripped off of it. Prosecutors were hoping that this information would help the jury understand why Angelina needed to be sentenced to the harshest punishment possible. The prosecution strategy works. The jury sentenced Angelina to death.
At the end, the judge said, "I have never witnessed such a stone-cold person in the way your behavior was with no emotion, and what you did to this person, it's disgusting."
Due to the statute of limitations, Angelina is never formally charged in the death of her 13-month-old daughter, but she'll have to spend the rest of her life paying for what she did to Frank Rodriguez. As of today, Angelina is still on death row. However, after a moratorium on the death penalty in California in 2019, there are no current plans to execute Angelina. Angelina is a psychopath.
She was a manipulator. She knew exactly how to manipulate my brother, Frank.
Angelina was willing to do whatever she needed to do to get the money. It's unbelievable what she did to her daughter and husband. She even had a plan to kill her best friend.
The way she murdered him, it was sickening. She had no intentions of ever loving my brother. And that's sad because my brother loved her.